Hey, this is Tony Kurzman here. Just wanted to give an overview of this fossil-free funds website and tool that can be used to take a look at the social and environmental responsibility for different mutual funds. So mutual funds have, dozens of investments, sometimes hundreds of investments, and so you can imagine it's pretty hard to track or figure out the environmental responsibility or social responsibility for each company within the investment. Um, the fossil-free funds lets you evaluate where your money is being invested, and so it definitely lets you take a look to see whether different companies might be polluting, or maybe they're contributing to deforestation, or maybe they have a lot of investments in military weapons, those kind of things. When I took a look at my mutual funds, I couldn't believe how many of the companies were in my funds that actually had pretty low fossil fuel grades, or I guess there would be a higher percentage of the fund that were in fossil fuels, invested in fossil fuels, and the carbon footprint was pretty bad for mine. So I'll show you that later, but I was really surprised at what I found. So the major categories here are fossil fuel grade. So basically that just gives you A through F depending on the percentage of investments in fossil fuels. And then the actual percentage in fossil fuels, carbon footprint, clean 200, I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment, and then sustainability mandate. Yeah, so the first category is here. If we take a look at fossil fuel grade and fossil fuels, the fossil fuel grade is based on a percentage of the total fund assets that are invested in fossil fuels. So basically the way it's broken down is you get an A if it's 0%, B if it's between 0 and 4%. If 4 to 7% of the fund is invested in fossil fuels, that's a C. D is between 7 and 11%, and then F is anything greater than 11%. That next category there is carbon footprint, and this is based on the annual greenhouse gas emissions for each company within the fund. So the carbon footprint is calculated using the Center for Social and Sustainable Products. They have a carbon portfolio calculator that's used for this. So here's a look at the breakdown. You can see the low value, below medium, above median, and high. So this is based on benchmarks. So for instance, the low value is that the fund footprint or carbon intensity is within the range of the bottom 25% of the benchmarked funds, right? So each fund has its sort of larger grouping or category, and each one of the funds is benchmarked. And so this is a comparison to that. The Clean 200 gives the percentage of investments in the fund that are Clean 200 companies. And so the Clean 200 companies are the largest 200 public companies ranked by their revenues from clean sources. Things like green energy, zero emissions vehicles. In some cases, it could be lending to green companies, those kind of things. And then sustainability mandate, this shows which funds earn Morningstar's sustainability mandate indicator. The sustainability mandated rating provides a reliable, objective way to evaluate how investments are meeting environmental, social, and governance challenges. A fund with a sustainability mandate may take a proactive stance by investing in something like environmentally friendly companies or firms with good employee relations, so kind of on the social responsible side. And then, like I mentioned earlier, there is a couple other categories that fossil-free funds links to, and they're all run by the same company. But deforestation-free funds is obviously focused on deforestation, and it lets you see if your savings or your investments are in companies and sectors that are driving deforestation. So you can imagine, certain agricultural practices, like I know that palm oil can be bad depending on how it's being grown. There's a gender equality category. So this analyzes the companies in mutual funds and tracks the gender balance of each company's leadership and workforce. As the title states, we have weapon-free funds. So you can imagine this shows funds that are invested in weapons companies, tobacco-free funds. Also, it will tell you if your investments are in tobacco companies. And there's also in this category, there's also if there's investments in entertainment companies that promote tobacco. Okay, so here's a quick look at my mutual funds, right? So I was invested in these three funds. And when I pulled up the grades here, I was really surprised by let's take a look. I was really surprised by the fossil fuel grade, right? So D is I believe it was between 7 and 11%, and the carbon footprint, this 88, 178. These numbers are not very good, and I'll show you as in a comparison here. I'll show you kind of there's a lot of companies that are 0%. Carbon footprint's very low, so although it shows a green dot here, that's actually a pretty high number. The Clean 200, that's not too bad. So, almost 9% of the investments are in Clean 200 companies, and then obviously we don't have a sustainability mandate there. So what I did is, after I found out that I wasn't invested in very good stuff, I just my initial thought was, it doesn't seem like, or I wouldn't think that the socially environmental friendly funds would have high returns. So what I did is I went straight to financial performance. So that's another nice feature on this website. So you can click on financial performance, and what I did is I ranked by 10-year returns. All right, so the highest here was the VITAX, and what you can see is the 10-year return of almost 19% is great. 1-year return was really excellent for some of these as well. But what you'll see is it has a fossil fuel grade of A. So if we come over here, we can see that the fossil fuels 0% invested. It does have a slight carbon footprint there, about 12% in Clean 200 companies, so that's pretty good. The highest that I've found was 51%. So yeah, so pretty good when it comes to overall fossil fuel results and carbon footprint. Okay, so let me just take you quickly through the website, just to take a look at a quick search here. All right, so here's the the beginning page of the website. First thing we could do is we can go to top scoring results here, and so again you can see fossil fuel grade A 0%. Carbon footprint's a little bit higher here, but investment in Clean 200, and then in this case we have a sustainability mandate, and then there's a separate rating that has to do with sustainability as well. So some of these are rated very high. And one of the interesting things, as I mentioned earlier, if we look at financial performance, what you'll notice is a lot of these have really great returns. 13, 14% over a 10-year span. That's excellent. 23%, 30, almost 30% in some of these. So although you're investing in something that's environmentally friendly or socially responsible, I think the dollars are also being used for giving good returns. So let's take a look at let's see. Let's start with this. So you can actually rank. So obviously we have a good fossil fuel grade here. Let's do the highest fossil fuel. So these are invested in 100% fossil fuels, right? And so you can see carbon footprints are high. Obviously the fossil fuel grade isn't the best. But yeah, we could take a look. I don't know. Let's click on one of these here. So yeah, you can see it breaks down not only the fossil fuel holdings, but as we scroll down here, you'll see, okay, so the companies that they're investing in aren't very good when it comes to gender equality. Obviously fossil fuels. Looks like they're pretty good in some of these other categories. And so we can expand this out, and we can kind of take a look, obviously, in F here. We can take a look at sort of how these are rated on this gender equality graph. Um, and then we can also click on, so if we click on one of these, we can actually, it'll show a breakdown of the investments. So this can get really detailed. And obviously we can click on see all and kind of evaluate each thing. But yeah, so you can take a look specifically at what's invested there. Here's a look at the carbon footprint. So this is showing, well, I guess if we showed all the benchmarks within this category, you can see that this fund is pretty much the worst compared to the others. And then, as I mentioned, the Clean 200. So this has zero. I don't think I've ever seen zero holdings in Clean 200. So obviously, they're not investing in companies um, that are ranked by these green revenues here. Investment profile, so this just gives a kind of an overview, fund assets, different category that it's in, if it's a socially responsible fund, and then some of the things we had already talked about. Yeah, so overall, this it's a great website to at least take a look at your investments and potentially switch over. For what it's worth, if you care, I actually switched over to VITAX. So I switched over from these company or these ratings that were, I think I had a fossil fuel rating of D and a certain percentage there. And what you'll notice is obviously I have really good ratings, but the financial performance for this fund is excellent. It's actually way better than the funds I was in. So, 10-year performance of about 19% is great. So I'm happy that I found this website, this tool to use to figure out what the fossil fuel and social responsibility parameters are for the funds that I've invested in. And it's a good way to divest from fossil fuels in general.